Okay, so this is the next video on the Hyundai Genesis R-Spec 2.0 turbo version. I did do a few little things yesterday that I didn't bother recording because I had a bunch of other stuff going on. I just needed to do it and get out of here. We had to go to dinner and stuff. I pulled the old oil filter off it and it was nasty. It was milky oil and water mixture. The oil was drained out of this at the shop I went to. They never pulled the oil filter off. No big deal. I knew that going in and looking at it, was old, right? So I did pull that off, and I did pull the drain plug out. Nothing. There was absolutely nothing in there. No big deal. Put it back in. I really was just checking. I put 5.5 quarts of oil in it, and then I did not put a new filter on it. I put a basin underneath it, and by hand I manually turned that engine over for about 10 minutes. What I was doing there was trying to clean the oil lines and the oil galleys inside the engine. And by clean them, I just mean force any sludge or oil and water that's in there out through the lines to where I'm getting fresh oil coming out of the filter housing, which I did. It took me about 10 minutes of just doing this for freaking 10 minutes, right? And I had the oil pump working, and you could, every time I'd bar it over my hand, you could see it was squirting. It was squirting out a shot of oil. After about 10 minutes, it was solid oil, fresh oil, no milkiness, none of that stuff. So basically just trying to get everything out of the inside of the engine. I topped it back off with oil. I put a filter on it, a brand new filter, and I barred it over for about another 5 minutes, maybe 10, I'm not quite sure. And I was just basically priming the system manually by hand, priming the oil filter, all that stuff. And my goal there was to get it primed to see if I could force any other crap out of any of the other oil galleys that's not directly at the filter housing. And then I checked the oil again just through the dipstick, and it was perfect. There was no milkiness, nothing. And today that's true again. And I've been barring this engine over like every couple of hours. I just come out here and I put fresh seafoam in it and I turn it over for a while, and then I go back and ice it. That's all I've been doing. This engine is now at the point where it spins over beautifully. There is absolutely no binding, there's no resistance. The pistons, all 4 pistons are traveling up and down on all strokes, no issues, nothing's hitting or pinging or nothing. So now that we're at this stage, the next thing we need to do is figure out, okay, does it have compression or is it totally gone? The rings, because of that rust that was on the sidewalls and on the top of the piston, the rings could be frozen a little bit to the piston. There are, I think, 2 or 3 rings and an oil slinging ring, and I don't know. I'd have to look up what Hyundai did to their pistons, but normally there's an oil ring and a top and a bottom piston ring, and there could be a little slinger sleeve in there. Again, I don't know much about Hyundais. I'd have to take it apart or look it up to figure that out. I'm sure somebody will know and put it in the comment box. So yeah, next thing, compression. Do we have compression? Do we not? Not sure. I have not turned the key on this car yet. We're going to do that tonight, and we're going to check the compression tonight. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do. If the compression numbers are really good, I really don't even need to do a leak down test. If one of them's bad, then we can do a leak down test and see where's it leaking. Is it leaking past the rings? Is it coming out through the dipstick, the crank, whatever? Or is it coming out the exhaust or the intake side? If we need to go there, we can absolutely go there. I have a leak down kit there that I've had for years. Not a big deal. So yeah, this is going to be a compression test video on a Hyundai Genesis that's had a hydrolock motor. The one other thing I did, and this is good practice if you're ever dealing with your own car that's you've driven into a puddle or something. This has a air charge cooler. It lives underneath the radiator. It's just a little fat. It kind of looks like it has fins on it, right? It's for cooling the air. On this one, just where it was sitting and how the pipes were configured, I had a suspicion that it may have sucked in a bunch of water into the charge cooler. So I did pull the lower turbo side charge cooler pipe off, and then I pulled the intake pipe off and I put a cone in there. I have my smoke machine has a cone where you can hook up the smoke to it and go through the cone. I just used that on the intake side, sealed it, put my air hose to the other side of it, and just give it 130 psi or something, whatever it's set to. And I blew out about a pint of water, or a pint, 22 ounces of water, give or take. It was a lot. The floor was soaking. I had to go get a squeegee and get it out of here. I'm guessing it was right around a pint of water. So always check that stuff. You know, the pipes look completely dry. You know, you look in them, they look fine. Don't take that as, you know, for granted. Just go ahead and take it apart. If you have any suspicion that you had water somewhere, just take it apart. Because if you don't, like if I didn't get that water out of there and I got this engine working and then I go to start it for real, I could have just sucked that pint of water right through the intake and bent a whole bunch of valves or hydrolocked it again, which would, well, I mean, you'd lose your mind if you did that. So take extra precautions. Water will get places you assume it didn't get to. Just be careful. That'd be the only advice I'd give on doing something like this. Check everything. Don't leave anything to chance. So all that said, let's do a compression test on this and see what we get. So I sucked all the stuff out of the cylinders just with that midi-vac tool. And before I do my compression test, I'm going to turn it over and just, you know, there could be chunks of crap in that cylinder. I need to get all that stuff out of there before I stick a compression tester on it. And I need to pull the fuel pump. And on these, I looked it up. On these, it lives in this fuel box right here. Fuse box, which you can't even see. Right, there you go, you can see it now. So this actually has 3 fuse boxes. There's the one on the dash, and then there's a main one that sits over on this side. And the fuel pump, hopefully I can get this in. Your fuel pump's the second relay towards the bulkhead. And on this car, it's this little blue guy. Oh, let me get a pair of pliers. Holy crap. Total weak sauce. So I just yank that bad boy out. That's what your fuel pump relay looks like. Set it right there. Yeah, that's it. It's ready to crank over with the key for the first time. So grab your compression tester. If you've never done one of these, the reason you want to disable the fuel is you want to smash that throttle all the way open when you're doing a compression test. Alright, let's see what we get. We got 110-ish, yeah, about 110. I don't know what these things should be. I did not look it up, but we'll see. All right. Number 2, let's see what we get. That's not good, 60. So we're going to have to do a leak down test to see where that's going. about 90. I just realized I don't think I hit the gas pedal on number 2, so we're gonna have to redo number 2. So we got 115, 60, and 90. Jesus, things all over the place. Number 4, we got 95-ish, so same as number 3. I need to redo number 2 because I totally forgot to hit the freaking accelerator pedal. So let's redo number 2. Let's see what we get. What do we get? So 70. So 110, 70, 90, 90. Not great. Not super great at all. So we need to figure out where it's going. So time for a leak time test. The intake's closed. Okay, right there. Let's crank it and see what we get. So we got 80% blow by somewhere. Sure sounds like it's the exhaust side. Intake's good. That makes no difference. Where is that going? Yeah, we got an exhaust valve problem. Or a head gasket problem. Yeah. So we got something going on with that exhaust, it looks like. So real quick, what I did, I pulled the valve cover off, and I just rotated this engine over where the number 2 exhaust valves and intake valves should be completely seated up in the cylinder. So it's all 4 valves are closed. You know, it's at the point in the timing where the spark could be firing. It's on its compression stroke. So now what I want to do is go in here and take a peek at the valves. I did look at all the valves as best I could with this tool, and I didn't see any that looked broken or bent. A bent valve's real hard to see. I should say I didn't see any that looked broken. So what I'm going to do is go back into cylinder 2 now and see, you know, where are these valves? How far away are they? You know, why are they not coming up? And we might give the spring a little love tap and see if they do retract. That's the plan. So, oh yeah, our valves are not where they should be. So the question is why? Why are they not where they should be? Are they bent? Or are they stuck? And that's our exhaust valve, it looks like. Yep, so both exhaust valves are open a lot. So I did that leak down test. Not sure what the last thing I recorded was, but the exhaust valves on 2, 3, and 4 are they're hanging down. They're not going up. I was able to get a look at them with that mirror on my inspection camera that gives it kind of like a 45-degree angle. And they're covered in junk, like this black kind of sludgy looking solution. That's about all I can call it. It really just looks like gunk, like thick gunk. The tops of the cylinders also have that thick gunk on them, and you can see it like streaking down the cylinders. So it's very, very difficult to tell if a valve is bent without taking it apart. I find it a little hard to believe that 6 valves on the exhaust side got bent and 2 didn't. I mean, if it sucked in the water, it could have hammered 3 and just died. I mean, it's possible. The front one that's not, the valves are going up, I barred it over to where they were in their open position, and they look relatively clean. Like, they're not spotless or anything, but they're, compared to the other ones, they're clean. Because they're hanging down or open, I can't fill the cylinder full of cleaner, because once the cleaner gets up to the valve, it just spews over the valve and into wherever. In this case, it's the exhaust. So we're just filling the exhaust up with cleaner and seafoam and everything else, right? So what to do? I'm not sure. I pulled the valve cover off this. I'm not sure if I showed that on the video, but I did pull the valve cover off it because I wanted to take a look at the top of the head and just see, was it bad in there? And it really wasn't. I took the valve cover off. It looked pretty good. I find on the head of one of the head bolts, I think they're triple squares on this. So there's a valley in the head, and I did see inside the head there was a little tiny bit of sludge, like oil and water mixed. But everything else looked good. So, it's super clean at the top side. It's just, and I think the crank is super clean as well, just based on the fluid and stuff that I got out of the sump, and the very top and the very bottom looks good, I think. I just don't know if the valves are bent or if they're just gummed up with that. And you should see it. It's like tar. This is what it looks like. Valve springs are fairly strong. I'm kind of leaning towards the valves being bent a little bit, because a valve spring, if you were to ever get one in your hand and try and squeeze it, it's tough. I mean, they put a lot of pressure on to return that valve up. So, kind of leaning towards some bent valves at the minute. If I take that head off and send it to a machine shop, it's probably going to be $1,000, which is right, whatever. A whole engine is not that much more with the same models. It's a lot easier to just throw an engine in it. There's probably some special tool you need for the timing on these. That's most cars these days. You need some kind of tool or whatever. I'd have to buy the tools. By the time you add it all up, you bought an engine. So what I'm going to do is I filled it full of ATF, or transmission fluid, and I filled them all the way to the top, because you pour it out quick, and then it gurgled back down. So I filled the exhaust full of transmission fluid is what I did. So I'm going to let that sit again for another night and see what happens. I did set the cams in a position where almost all the valves are closed. Or should be closed. They're not closed, but should be closed. So if they do free up, they can, if the spring, can move at any, it'll go and reseat itself. Hopefully that makes sense. Other than that, yeah, there's not much more I can do tonight. I'm kind of debating, just pull the head off it, right? Take a look. But then if you do that and they're not bent and they're just gummed up, you're putting a head gasket on it, and you cost yourself a bunch of money for not having patience. So I'm gonna have some patience. It's not like I need this car. I've got 6 other cars, so I can go drive those. Not a huge deal. So that's the plan. I'm gonna let it sit for another day. Come back out tomorrow, check it. That inspection camera with that mirror, when I put it in there, it gets so dirty so quick. It's very, very, very difficult to actually see if or to see what's going on with the valves, right? It's extremely difficult. So it is what it is. That's my plan. We'll see what happens next. It's very hard to see a bent valve. They don't look bent, but when you're looking at them upside down through an inspection camera, it's very difficult. These don't have rockers; they have cam followers, so I can't smack the rockers and the springs, right, to make them try and pop back up. It's just not possible. I will say that the cam followers, they are all touching the cams when the lobes are up. So the cam followers are coming up and down and doing their thing. It's just the valve underneath that cam follower is not. So kind of leaning me towards them being bent. And it's just unusual that what's bent and what's not bent. None of the intakes are bent.